KoitCast. Today's guest is an experiencer and author of Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey. He has had remarkable paranormal experiences his whole life and has had contact with the Council of Eight. Please give a massive Koit welcome to Kevin Briggs. Hello Kevin, welcome to KoitCast.
Hi Paul, thanks for inviting me on your show. I'm looking forward to chatting today.
Me too, and thank you for tuning in from your spaceship high above the globe as we speak.
Yes, I'm just on the way back from the moon. I've been very busy this morning, so
Have you? Collecting helium-3 or what have you been doing up there?
Yeah, the usual bit of mining and usual stuff like that.
Oh yeah, just the old day-to-day. Okay,
Yeah.
let's start then. I always like to start with this question because it's a great place to start. Who are you, where you're from, or the background stuff?
Okay, well, I'll give you a quick background. I was born in Wakefield in the UK. I lived in Wakefield. First job was a technician at a university. Then from there, I left that and I became a police officer in West Yorkshire Police.
Okay,
And then
cool.
from there, I moved on. I retired from the police force and relocated to Florida and set up a real estate business in Florida. So I was a technician, a police officer, a real estate agent, and now I'm really semi-retired. And now I just talk about my book, a couple of books, other things I'm doing. Got involved with the ETs. They're asking me to do more things. So I'm moving towards that now. And I see the story myself. I'm looking at it and it's growing exponentially now. And it's bringing other people into the story as well, which is fascinating. So that's my background. Just a normal, regular guy from Wakefield with 3 different jobs, 2 in the UK and then 1 over here.
A question about Florida, right? Because obviously we're from England. We got no animals that will kill us, short of like adders that could, but realistically they won't do. Now you've just jumped into a place where alligators can just freely roam and eat you. What's all that about?
Well, yes, they can do. Yes, they're all over. But they don't tend to eat people unless you do things that are stupid. They tend to feed at dawn and dusk. So a lot of people swim in the lakes here, a lot of people boat in the lakes. Okay, you don't swim in the lakes at dawn and dusk because that's when they feed. Sometimes the kids do, and maybe once a year a kid will disappear. But generally, if you respect the nature, they don't do you any harm at all. But yeah, we do. We've got spiders, we've got rattlesnakes, we've got all sorts of poisonous snakes. But I've been here 23 years now, so. But the ants are the worst. The ants are little buggers they are. They
Oh, the
bite
bullet
you all
ones,
the
is
time. Yeah. I don't like them at all. They sneak up on you and bite you.
Swines. Yeah, that must be a big difference. Obviously in England, like I said, we got nothing. Then you go somewhere where everything can hurt you. And that,
Yeah,
how do you get used to that disparity, that
yeah.
difference?
I don't think some people do, but I think you have to educate yourself into your surroundings. And I actually live in the country, and I've got 5 acres, and I love sitting there watching the nature around me. And there's so much there, and you can learn from the nature. A lot of information comes through the animals, through the birds, through the plants and trees and things. We're not aware of that, but once you open up your mind to that and absorb the information that's coming in, I had a quick experience I'll tell you about with.
Hmm.
We had 8 vultures, no, it's not a lie. We had a number of vultures land on our roof. We have vultures around it, they're big birds. But they don't normally land around where we are. They were scratching on the roof. So my wife and I went out to have a look. And when we went out, they all flew off. And they flew off onto my fence line, which I said is 5 acres. And they landed on a post, each on a post. And then they were looking towards my neighbours. And I thought, I'll go get a camera and I'll take the photograph. So I went to get my phone. As I'm walking towards them, they're all facing towards my neighbours. The first one turned and opened up its wings like that and looked at me. So then the second one turned and did the same like that. And then the third. And all of them did that. I thought, I don't know anything about vultures. Perhaps it's a threat posture. Perhaps they don't want me going close to them.
Mm.
So I then stopped. I took the photograph, and then I mentioned it to a friend of mine who knows about birds and communication and I think you've had Mike Cleland on your
Yes.
show talking about owls, right? So
Yeah.
your listeners will probably understand this. So I asked her, what was it? And she said, how many birds were there? I said, I don't know. She said, I suspect there were 8 birds, and it was those 8 birds representing the Council of 8 and showing respect towards you. That's why they were facing the other way, turned around and opened the wings. So I had a look at the photograph, and yes, there were 8 birds. So it was a communication using nature from the Council of 8, as it were. I mean, so once you realise that, then, and as I say, you've had Mike Cleland on your show, and he has the same with the owls and things. And I've got other friends that I've contact with through the owls. I've even got friends that have contact with the large rabbits. The first time I heard about them, I don't know whether you know about them or not. I was talking with a friend, and he lives in New Mexico, and he lives in a national park, I think. And he goes out walking, and he'll see these about 6 foot tall rabbits walking in front of him. He then speeds up his pace to catch up with them, and they speed up. He slows down, and they slow down. I know when he told me this, I said, "What have you been drinking or smoking?" He said, "Nothing, nothing." Anyway, uh, but then I met another person who had the 6 foot rabbits in her home. And then a third person who came up to me in a bar and told me about the rabbits in her home, and they were extraterrestrials. And I didn't know this woman. And then a fourth person. So I've now got 4 people that has told me directly that these see these large rabbits. And I suspect that they show us the large rabbits so we're not frightened. And they
Yeah.
change the reality.
I get
I don't
that.
normally talk about this stuff because it's interesting. These are things that I just pick up while
Well, they are
meeting with other
interesting.
people.
The screen memory, or whatever you want to call it, that thing to stop us being frightened. I get it, and I like that aspect of the alien mystery. In that, at least that comes some way towards assuaging our fears. Because I don't think a lot of the time aliens give a damn about our fear. That's one
No,
part of what I've discovered. So, but I do want to ask the question about the vultures, if you don't mind me asking, which is to say, have you looked at the real aspect of vultures in the real world around us? In that, is that part of their behaviour that they might do that to, or just open
no, I
up?
haven't. No, I haven't. That's a very good question. I just accepted what my friend said and left it at that. Perhaps I should do some more research and see if it is a threat posture. I mean, it could well be.
Mm,
It could be a coincidence that there were 8 there. It could be a coincidence that I've been here 23 years, and that's the first time they landed on my roof and the first time they came down and landed on the fence. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, but I did have another issue. Now we're talking about animals and nature. We have some crows around here, and I go out and I'll feed the crows, and there's usually 4 that come each day, and I'll give them some nuts and things. And on one day, there was this tremendous squawking outside at the front. And I went out, and my wife went out as well. It was that loud. She said, "What's that?" Anyway, there were about 30 or 40 crows sat on the telegraph wire, all squawking away, all of them. What's going on? So I walked down to the bottom of the paddock, and there was a crow on the floor, and I picked it up, and it was dead. And Sandy says, "Oh, I'll have to go and bury it." So I'll go bury it. And I'm walking away, and they were squawking. And Sandy said to the crows, "It's okay. Your bird has died. Your friend has died. Our culture is to bury the dead. So Kevin's going to go and bury the crow." And they all shut up. And when I buried it, they all flew off. So again, communication through nature in relation to those birds. I don't know whether they were attracting my attention to see if I could help the crow, but unfortunately I couldn't. It was dead. So once you realise that, and you realise that communication, I had another one with a dragonfly. This is interesting, Paul. I went outside and I've got a netting that covers some tomatoes, not
Yeah, you make sure you get that right. Yeah.
some tomatoes, and I tried to get it free, and it was well stuck in this netting. So I went inside to get some scissors, and I gently snipped away because I got very fragile wings. I didn't want to touch it, and I did the last snip, and it just flew off. It went over the fence and disappeared. I thought, well, that's good. Later on in the day, I went out with my dogs, and I'm walking past where the dragonflies feed on the flowers and things. And one of them came and flew around me. And then I went out again later on, and all the dragonflies followed me down this path, and they went back to feeding again. And I never had that happen before. And I noticed then one came, I went to sit on the porch, and one of the same colour, shape, and size was flying around me. It flew around my legs, and I held my hand out, and it came up to my end of my fingers by about an inch, and then it flew off. Now, about a few months later, and again, I don't know much about dragonflies, how long they live, but I was pressure washing my driveway, and this dragonfly, full size one, 4, 5, 6, maybe even not 6 inches, but a full size dragonfly of the same color came flying around my legs. And I said, "Oh," I said, "be careful. Don't get near that pressure washer." I stopped my pressure washer. I said, you might get hurt. It flew around me and landed on my forehead. And I think it was the same dragonfly. Once you make that connection, and now we're talking about that, I'll tell you a quick story about my brother. My brother's a retired aircraft engineer, a nuts and bolts guy. Had his own business in the UK, travelled globally repairing aircraft and things. And he retired a few years ago, and he moved down to Spain. And I speak to him regular, and I was speaking to him this day, and he said, "Kevin, you should see the butterflies here in Spain. They're huge, nearly as big as your hand." And we have got butterflies in the UK, as you know, but these are really, he said, they're really, really big. I said, "Well, why don't you go out on your balcony and ask the butterfly to land on your hand?" This is an exercise in using consciousness as a conduit for communication with nature. So I said, "Go outside and ask the butterfly to come and land on your hand." He said, "They won't do that." I said, "Well, indulge me. Go outside and ask them." But I said, "You'll need a reason. When you see the butterfly, say you'd like it to come and land on your hand so you can look at the beautiful colours on its wings." So a butterfly came in sight. He asked it, he held his hand out. It flew out of sight. It turned around, it came back, and it landed on his fingers. I said, "Right, now what you need to do, you need to ask it to go away and come back with a friend. But you need a reason. And the reason is you want to compare the beautiful colours on the wings of a friend." So it took off, it flew out of sight, it came back, it landed on his fingers, and the second one landed on his forehead. That day, he had 12 butterflies landing on him. And I've got pictures of all these because it happened live while I was talking to him, like I'm talking to you. That's an example of using consciousness as the conduit for communication. I now call him the butterfly whisperer. The following day, he was showing off to his wife. He said, "Come on, Lorraine, let's go outside on the balcony and I'll ask the butterflies to come and land on you." So they went outside. He asked with the reasons, and they came. I've got photographs. There's one on the glasses here, 2 or 3 on her arm. And so he's connected through consciousness to nature. And once we realize that, it makes us realize we live in a greater reality of consciousness itself.
I like all of those anecdotes, and the reason I like them is because I'm on the same wavelength. I believe that you can consciously link with nature and have it respectfully respond. I just don't think humans practice it a lot at all because they don't think that it's possible.
Exactly, exactly. And let me tell you the reason why I got into that. I went to a conference. I think it was in New Hampshire, I think. And one of the speakers there was how to communicate telepathically with animals using consciousness. So he gave a lecture for about an hour and a half. And it was really interesting. And it wasn't something I'd really considered before. I'd always been into animals and nature and things. And then we finished, we broke for a coffee break. We all went outside. It was on a farm, and there were these picnic tables outside. We all got us coffee and sat out there. And then I saw this young girl walking with a newborn lamb. What newborn, but it was a small lamb. And I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" She said, "Oh, it's a lamb, and I'm trying to get it into used to people. It hasn't been and spoken with anybody yet, or It's not used to people, so I'm trying to get it used to people. I said, so I thought, oh, I'm going to try my new found skills now that I've learned about today. So I said, what type of lamb is it? She said, it's a merino lamb. And I know that merino lamb's wool is very special. So I sat down at my coffee table and I said to it, I said, I understand you're a merino lamb. You're very special. Your wool is very soft. Would you mind coming over to me? Because I've never felt the wool of a merino lamb. Anyway, so you can come over so I can feel the wool. So I'm sat there, nothing happened. So I just sat down. So I turned around, drinking my coffee. Then I felt something rubbing next to my leg. It was the lamb. So I stroked the lamb and I said, oh, thank you for coming. You are a beautiful lamb. That's the first time I've ever touched the wool or fleece. I said, it's not wool yet, is it? It's fleece.
Mm.
I touched the fleece of a merino lamb. Thank you very much for coming over. And it wandered off, eating small plants. I finished my coffee and I went back inside to get another coffee. And it was a galley kitchen in his farmhouse. I opened the back door. I walked down to the end of the galley, poured my coffee, turned around, and the lamb was right behind me. It followed me in, and then it followed me back out again. And the young girl came up to me and said, Kevin, that's the first time the lamb has ever interacted with a human. So, and that was the beginning of this journey. And I've told you about these other things. So once you learn that, it makes seeing nature, seeing the animals, seeing the plants, the trees, far more interesting, because I now believe that it's part of my shared consciousness. That's what they are. So they want to communicate with us if we let them.
I have a question for you on intention. Let's just say we put Kevin 2 in that story that you told about the lamb, and Kevin 2, he's not quite as nice as you. He's got evil intention and he really likes mint sauce, if you know where that's going. Right? Do you think Kevin 2 would have had the same success because in the back of his mind is a nefarious intent? Or do you think your good intentions also helped link?
Yes, I would say the good intentions. One thing about telepathic communication is you can't hide the emotions or the intentions. And I speak telepathically with my ET star families on a regular basis, and I have done since childhood. But you cannot have telepathic communication and lie, or lie about the emotions either, because the information flows through the conduit of consciousness itself.
Right. So the lamb wouldn't have come up to Kevin 2, and the same theory then about the dragonflies, the butterflies, everything.
Yeah,
it would stay away out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my understanding now, because I've once I learnt that from this guy, I put it into practice, and what a difference it makes. The in relation to having communication, I've got some squirrels around here. They come round, they tease my dogs. They run up and down the trees.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, I know. I've heard stories of that.
And they tease them. They like the interaction. And I did learn that crows, squirrels, and another bird are all part of the same community, and they all protect one another. And I've had an example of that when a bird of prey came down and tried to pick up a squirrel, and then the crows attacked the bird of prey till he let go of the squirrel, and he shot up the tree, and then the crows went into the tree to get the bird of prey to fly off, and it did. So there's that community there as well within the community of nature itself. Yeah, but that we don't see unless you're interested in nature. There's so many things going on that perhaps we don't have the time to do that. I do now, and I'm interested in it. So yeah, but it's fascinating when you realise.
Oh yeah, and animals give out a bigger range of behaviour than we give them credit for. I mean, I've heard of the crow story before with dead animals, that a lot of them come around and pay their respects, so to speak. And the elephants do the same thing.
Okay, that's good.
They'll walk for miles and then wail over a dead elephant. So I think that's a common thing in nature, but we don't necessarily always see it.
Yeah, we don't have many elephants in Florida, though, Paul.
No, or in England, for that matter. There used to be loads of elephants in Florida, but alligators and the spiders killed them all. Yeah, I know how that works. Okay, so let's jump in to what was your paranormal introduction?
Oh, that's right. So we're now changing the subject altogether. When I
Yes.
was 3 years old, my mother engaged a photographer to take some photographs for the family album. When the photographer arrived, I had my hair brushed and washed, and I had got a new cardigan on. And he lifted me up onto the dining room table for a better elevated position for the photograph. And as I looked around the room, I realized my conscious energy was in a physical body again. So it's like me looking out of the physical as I looked around the room. That was my first recollection of being here again in a physical body. So that was the first
Hmm.
thing. Second thing, I was 8 years old. As a child, I was always sensitive to the frequencies that surround us. And I was taking a bath at home and I felt this change in the frequency within the bathroom. I looked to my right and two beings appeared. It frightened me to death at the time, as you can imagine, Paul. And they were they were speaking telepathically to one another, which I could understand. They were both extremely attractive, one male, one female. They both had blonde hair, shoulder length, both of them, deep blue eyes, wearing a deep blue jumpsuit type garment. And I know these now. I've known them all my life. The male is called Ort, and the female is called Dee. And Dee said to Ort telepathically, "Is this the boy?" And Ort said yes. And then she said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yes, yes, this is a boy." So then she asked him again. She said, "Yes, but look at him. He's small, he's uneducated, and he's frightened by our presence." And she was correct. I was terrified. And he said, "Yes, this is a boy. I will guide him. I will teach him." There was some other conversation in there, and then they left. As I said, I was so frightened. I didn't get out of the bath. The water went cold. I was actually shivering. My mother came in to see why I was still in the bathtub. I told her about the two beings, and she said it was just my imagination. It wasn't. I'm still in touch with Orton D to this day. I'm now 71, and D Ort was true to his word. He has guided me, he has taught me, along with thee and others, many things, but mainly about consciousness itself. We've already touched on consciousness as a conduit for communicating with nature. But when we understand how consciousness can be used as a conduit for communication, for travel, for healing, for education, for creation and co-creation, then we can communicate with our star families at their level of consciousness, which was what we were doing with the insects which I've described. So that was the beginning of this lifelong journey. And now the reason why I speak out about it is because about 7 years ago, I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I came back from the bathroom. I got into bed. I was about to snuggle down, and there was a bright light outside the bedroom window. It came in through the window. The bedroom lit up like a myriad of butterflies, and Orton D materialized at the bottom of the bed. Bearing in mind, I'm used to seeing the now lifetime experience with them. After pleasantries, I asked them what was the reason for their visit. And they said, "Kevin, we would like you to write about your lifelong contact with us. We would like you to speak about your lifelong contact with us." I said, "Well, I don't mind talking about it, but I'm not really a writer." And they said, "Well, Kevin, we'll continue to guide you. We will continue to teach you, and we'll give you some information to include in the book," which they did. The following morning, I told my wife about the visit, and I started writing my first book, Spiritual Consciousness. I've got it here, A Personal Journey. And this covers a lot of my experiences in the early years with Orton D and others. So, yeah.
Awesome. Now I have a shed load of questions regarding what you've just mentioned, both of those encounters, but I want to start with the first one. So let's start with when they were communicating telepathically. How did you know what they were saying? Were they radiating that out to you as well, telepathically?
Yes, well, I can explain what telepathic communication is. They're just thought. It's consciousness itself. Each time you have a thought, that thought is consciousness. So it radiates out. And if you pick up on that thought, then and you can identify that it's telepathic communication and not your own thought. That's really the key to it. But I learned by when well, they helped me learn this really they would wake me up at say always 1:11 p.m. in the morning, or 2:22 p.m. or 3:33. So there's a synchronicity with the time when I was woken up and given, let's say, given a thought. I'm given a thought. I wake up and I have this thought. It's a telepathic communication. So I would get up, I would repeat the message or the thought back to them, and I walk into my bathroom. From my bathroom, I can see a street light. I would repeat the message and say, if this message has come from you telepathically, can you turn that street light out just to confirm it's come from you? And the street light goes out immediately. And when you do that all your life, you understand how telepathic communication works. You become confident and comfortable with using it. So, yeah, and to me, it's normal because I've done it all my life. I can have a conversation with them. They wake me up usually with that synchronicity. Or on one occasion, I was just sat there. It was 10 o'clock at night. I was watching the TV, and a thought came into my head. Now, was this a telepathic thought, or was it a message from my ET guides? And the thought that came into my head, it was 10 o'clock. Kevin, you haven't locked your chickens in. And at that time, I had chickens, and we have to lock them in at night because the coyotes come and other predators, and they'll steal them and eat them. So I thought, I'm sure I locked them in. I better go and check. Bearing in mind, I'm in the middle of a movie, so I'm not thinking about anything. And this thought comes. This is an example of how they teach me. So I go outside. As I walk out the back door, that street light I've just spoken about goes out. Okay, I don't think anything of it. I go through my gate, go to my chicken coop, and it is locked, so I was correct. And then there's another street light there behind the coop, and that went out. That gave me the thought, I wonder if there's a craft in the area because the street lights are going out. So I looked up, and there's a craft there, triangular in shape, about 500 feet, lit up like a Christmas tree. It had a red neon light that went all the way around the triangle, and then that went out, and then the white one, and it flew silently and slowly over my head. And that was a lesson in telepathic communication. That's how they've taught me. I think I mentioned earlier that they didn't take me and sit me down in the classroom on a craft like they do with some experiences. Mine were practical experiences, and learning telepathic communication is one of the important things that they've taught me, and the understanding of consciousness itself.
Okay, I have a number of questions. They're all going to be the same word, but I want to understand. So it's just about understanding. Every time I hear of this style of alien being, i.e., the blondes, with long blonde hair, they're always wearing a blue jumpsuit. Why?
That's a good question. I don't know. I have no idea. Perhaps it's a uniform. I know that Orton D are Arcturians. They are fifth dimensional beings. They are guides and teachers. That's their profession. And I was given an equation in relation to the different dimensions. The different dimensions are just frequencies of consciousness. But in answer to that question, I don't know why other people see them in blue jumpsuits.
Have you ever seen them in any other
uniform? Sorry.
Have you ever seen them in any different clothing, or has it always been in that?
Yes, I've seen them in normal clothing, and I've also seen them in a translucent figure when they appear without fully materializing. But when they came and materialized in my bedroom 7 or 8 years ago, they were just dressed in what appeared to be normal clothing, really. So yeah, so I've seen 3 different types with the blue jumpsuit with clothing, and I know they've shown themselves to other people. If they put human clothes on or normal clothes, then they just blend in. You cannot tell the difference, other than that they are so attractive, and these deep blue eyes, and obviously the blonde hair. But yeah,
Are they? It's Arcturians, you said, yeah?
yeah.
Are they physical beings, or are they a different form that then presents itself as a physical being?
No, they are physical, but they are just like us. They're spiritual beings like we are, and they have a physical form. As I am a spiritual being, I have a physical form. The only difference is that I'm in the third dimension, they're in the fifth dimension. And the only difference, as I've said earlier, between the dimensions are the frequencies of consciousness. In fact, another lesson they gave me, um, if I'm able to travel outside the physical realm, and I have done since I was a child, onto the astral plane. So I would leave my body and go onto the astral plane. And while I'm traveling on the astral plane, on this particular occasion, it's one of many, many, many stories. A craft came alongside me, and on the craft were two beings. They were Ort and D. It came alongside, and they invited me on the craft. So I went through the skin of the craft. When I went through the skin of the craft, I realized the skin was conscious. When I entered the craft, there were two orbs there, golden, orange, yellow in color, slightly vibrating. That was Orton D's pure conscious energy orb. And on this occasion, they wanted to give me some information to convey to someone else, which I did, but that's another story. But I said to them, again, this is another lesson, a practical lesson. I said, let me see if I understand what's happening here. I said, I'm a physical being from the third dimension. You are physical beings from the fifth dimension. We are both traveling outside of our physical realms as pure conscious energy. I said, yes. Oh, in a craft that you've created through thought and consciousness. I said, yes, that's correct. I then said, I see the two of you as pure conscious energy orbs. How do you see me? And they said, Kevin, we see you exactly the same. So we have those same abilities that they have if you are taught them, if you develop them. You can't fly a 747 jumbo jet without learning how to do it. So you can learn how to travel outside of the physical realm as a pure conscious energy orb, as they do.
So, to further expand that, right? If you are a floating orb and I'm a floating orb and those two beings are a floating orb, essentially we're the same stuff, but we're playing in a different sandbox. Is that right?
Yes. Oh, without doubt. Yeah, it's a very good, simple analogy. Is that? Yeah, it's very good. Yes. Yeah. There's no difference between us and them, other than we're in a different sandbox. Yes.
Which then leads to this question. That must have been a choice for energy Kevin to come here and become Kevin, and energy me to come here and become Koit or Paul or whatever I want to talk about my name is today, and them to become that. Why? Why would we do the different things? What's that,
Okay,
that
that's
all
a very good
about?
question. Yeah. My understanding from what I've learned over the years is that it's a soul choice. The soul, the energy of the soul itself chooses to come down into a physical reality, a physical dimension. And I'm sure it can choose to go into the third dimension as a human, or the fifth dimension as an Arcturian, or other dimensions as other different beings. But we have a choice and we choose. But then we lose that memory while we're here in the physical. So it's like being in a school or a university while we're in that particular physical locality. We are learning, and I'm sure we all look back on our lives and see how much we've learned. And then, but I'm fortunate to see of memories. I've been shown my three past lives, and I've already been shown my next incarnation. So that helps with that understanding that we are spiritual beings. We are a soul that has a body, and then the body will die and the soul carries on. But I, from the age of 9, was able to separate my, you could call it conscious, I call it a conscious energy orb from my physical. But you could call it a conscious energy soul, I suspect. I haven't done that in the past, but it is the soul energy that we are separating from the physical realm.
It takes me to this next question, right? Which is to say, if we are coming here for a school experience of some variety, right, to learn, to grow, whatever we put on that, and I'll find out what you think in a minute on that one. And they're Ort and D are doing the same in their fifth dimensional space, yeah? They're learning presumably at that level. Why the need to interact between third and fifth? Because surely you
Okay,
want that
well,
experience there and I want this experience here. Why are we muddying the waters?
okay, well, I'm not just in contact with Art and Deer. I'm in contact with a group of 8 beings, which I met when I was 14. I'll go into that later. But they are here specifically to help the human race evolve to the higher levels of consciousness so they can join them, or we can join them in that fifth dimension. And I know that my mission here, because I've been told, is to help to facilitate the reveal globally of their presence. So that's what I'm working towards. So yeah, they're here to assist. They are benevolent, and that's important to know that they are benevolent. They are here to assist with our evolution. There are some evil ETs out there, as there are evil humans. We see them all the time in our societies. They're no different. They've evolved to different levels, but they still have the evil extraterrestrials, shall we say. But I think that evil is part of consciousness itself. It's a yin and a yang. It's a balance. It's out of balance, then evil prevails. When it's in balance, then you can have a choice of which to be the evil or the good, the light or the dark. So yeah, that's my understanding.
No, that's fair enough. Is This is going to sound like a flippant question when I phrase this, but it's in my head, so I'm going to ask it. Which is to say, I had an email recently, right, to say, "Oh, we're switching off 3G in your network for in your area for your mobile phone, right?" Are they then? Is the 3D world being turned off soon, and we're being prepared to raise up to the 4G? Do you know what I mean with
Okay, well,
consciousness? Does that make sense?
that's a very that's a very good question. It does make sense. No, I don't think they're going to turn off the 3D reality. I suspect that those who learn and have the abilities will move to the higher dimensional frequencies, and those that don't will stay here in the third dimension and continue their journey and learning. I mean, I very often sit out in my yard, and I'll sit under a large sycamore tree, and if you sit there and watch what's going on, all the beautiful nature around you, all the life that's around you, all the consciousness that is around you. It's amazing. It's like being sat in a fifth dimension because everything is interconnected and we all communicate with one another. So perhaps it's my small piece of the fifth dimensional. When I go outside of where I live, then I can come across the lower levels, shall we say, of the third dimension.
If we're on a path of increasing our spiritual frequency, right, to get out of this level, we want to move to the next level of the game and the next level. Where do the consciousness of animals and stuff fit in? Is that just a temporary, oh, I just want to go in there to experience it? Because how can they improve?
Well, I think they're already there. I think they've got a higher level of consciousness than we have, but they don't communicate with us because it's more difficult. But so we have to learn to communicate with them, and then they will open up to them. I think that's why I was giving the example of the lamb, the dragonfly, the butterfly with my brother. I shared that with my brother, and we created that together. So we are able to create, co-create, manifest a reality. And when you understand that, we can manifest the reality that we desire, not only for ourselves, but for our children, for our future generations. But we have to get to that level of understanding of consciousness and the creation and co-creation side of that, so we can do that.
Yes, and I've heard that exact thing before, by the way. But and the same thing I mentioned to that person. I can't remember who it was that I spoke to this on this subject. But I said, it's hard for us to fathom that because we're in a world that distracts you and you just think this is the world and that's it. It's people that, like you, perhaps, that will have these experiences that will nudge you in a different direction to then think, oh, maybe this isn't the reality. Maybe there's a bigger reality. And is that what the nudges of the aliens are for?
Yes, I would agree with that. I would say yes. I've been nudged, I've been guided, I've been taught these things. I wouldn't have learnt them without all the other extraterrestrials I'm in contact with. But they've taught me to an understanding of consciousness, so I can communicate with them at their level of consciousness. It's simple to me because I've done it all my life, and
Hmm.
I've learned. I've been a good student. I've been studious, and I enjoy the interaction. I just see them as part of my extended star families, only they live in a higher dimension or on another planet, or even on our planet. I suspect there's many here, but we don't see them because they're at those higher frequencies and they don't allow us to see them. But once you open up to that, then you can communicate with them. They will show themselves. I know I had 7 greys in my house one evening, which was quite interesting. The
Interesting. That would scare the living bejesus out of me.
well, I'm not fearful of them because I'm part of them, as it were, because I have an understanding. I've interacted with them from the age of 8. So it's just like visiting your grandparents or visiting your aunts and uncles in different countries and things or whatever. So I don't have any fear from them. And I suspect that's why some of them open up. I didn't know who these 7 greys were, and I still don't know to this day who they are. But as I said, I live out in the country. I've got 5 acres. I live on a dirt road, so there's no traffic of anything. And it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. I've got 2 German shepherds, and they started barking. And if anybody has dogs, you know when a dog barks and it's a warning. So I got up, and this hadn't happened before. And I've lived in the country for a number of years now. I turned all the outside lights on because I'm not brave to frighten anybody off. And then I went out the front door with my 2 German shepherds. As I stepped out, there was 7 greys walking across my front paddock towards me. I wasn't frightened, as I said. I didn't know what to do, so that I'll go back inside. So I went back inside, not out of fear, just because I didn't want my dogs to see them and go and attack them or whatever. Not, I don't know whether they would or not, but so I went inside and I closed the door behind me. And I thought, what shall I do? I thought, I'll just stand here and wait. So I stood by the door to wait to see what happened. And the door started opening slowly. It got to about 18 inches, and then they all came in. And at that time, I had 2 3-seater sofas and a 2-seater. So I had 8 seats. We all sat down in the living room. We had a discussion, and then they left. I have no memory of what was discussed, but they allowed me the memory of the meeting. And I still don't know who they are to this day. But clearly, they felt comfortable in reaching out to me because they knew I wouldn't be frightened by them, but I don't know who they were.
See, when I hear stories like this, and it often seems to figure these greys, it always strikes to me of nefarious intent because you are left with a gap, which is a mystery. And that gap elicits like worry or concern because you don't know what's going on. Don't you feel that, or are you still not fearful at all?
No, I'm not fearful at all. I have heard that before from others who say that, but I'm not fearful of them. They're just other beings, you know. Uh, I'm more fearful if I went to a place, some places in on Earth. If you go to some of the inner city areas or whatever, you know, you don't want to be walking down some of the streets late at night. And now I would be fearful there, possibly, I don't know, but not with the extraterrestrials. No, I don't fear them at all. I mean, you have to be careful because you can attract negative energies within the extraterrestrials as well. So I always protect myself from the negative side of consciousness itself because you can get negative energies attaching themselves to you. But yes, I was always curious as a child, and I always wanted more information. And because I'm open to it, and now I've been educated, I mean, I had a group called, I don't know if you've heard of the Penti. You spell it P apostrophe NTI. And I think it was Susan Walker. I heard her talking about them and about these Penti. They live here underground in the earth, and she's had contact with them all her life, I think. And I thought, oh, wonder if I can reach out to them with my telepathic abilities. So I listened to a presentation. I reached out to them and I communicated with them. And I saw two penty. When I get telepathic communication, I also get a visual representation. It's like watching a TV screen. And then within the communication, there's emotions. So there's a visual, emotions, and the telepathic communication. And we had a brief discussion. And then they left. Then I went on to Sue Walker's website, and she has pictures of the Penty that she's had interactions with most of her life, I think. And the first two on the pictures were the two that I spoke to. And I've spoken to them since. They reached out to me and communicated with me telepathically, and they're supporting the reveal of the extraterrestrials. They're supporting it. So we've got extraterrestrials supporting the reveal of extraterrestrials now, which is quite fascinating, really.
I'm going to dive into that story a bit later, if I may. I'm just going to go back to your start, if you will, where you're in the bath. You've had this visit. You're scared at that time because you told me that's your first time. You are fearful
Yeah.
here. Your mum comes in, says you're making it up, sort of thing. Surely that's got to put something in her mind that, oh, is there some truth in it? Did you carry on and tell her other stories throughout your childhood of things that may or may not have happened?
No, I never mentioned it again.
Okay.
I didn't need to. I didn't feel the need to. I know when I was, I'll just share a brief story of when I was 14. I was
Okay.
in Wakefield and I had a paper round. And every time when I went out to do the paper round, I would look up and there would be a UFO above the house. It would follow me around the paper round, and the second UFO would always appear, and both would follow me around the paper round. And then when I'd finished, one would go back in the direction it come from, and one would just go straight back up into space. And this was a regular occurrence. And then while I was doing the paper round, I was again sensitive to the frequencies, and I was sensitive to these frequencies behind the hedge or behind the wall. And on one day, I got the courage to ask them. I said, "I know you're there. Can you show yourself?" And these two small grey beings stepped out from behind the hedge, behind the wall, and I wasn't frightened. I said, "What do you want?" And they said, "Well, there's a group of people that would like to meet with you." I said, "Would you?" They said, "Would you come with us?" I said, "Well, I don't think I can." I said, "I've got to finish my paper round, and then I've got to go to school." They said, "Well, you can finish your paper round." I've nearly finished it anyway, and then we'll have you back in time for school. So I agreed to go with them. So I went. I was transported in the small craft. We went into a large craft, a mother craft, and the only reason why I think it was a mother ship or mother craft was the size of the hangar. When we egressed from the small craft, it was the size of two football stadiums, and that was the hangar. Um, and it's quite interesting. As we were walking down to the main door to go into the centre of the craft, there was another small grey working on one of the craft. And I've met him since. I know him. His name is Tia. He's a pilot. He's a technician. He repairs his own craft. He maintains and flies. And as I'm walking towards the door to go into the actual craft itself, he just waved at me and I waved back just to be polite. But I say I've met him now a few times and I have some interaction with him. But I was taken into this amphitheater. Led down. I went into this amphitheater and it was full of all these different beings. The whole amphitheater was full. And at the front of the amphitheater was a table, and sat there were 8 beings. The first, and I was taken down to be introduced to them. I thought I was there as a human specimen. I wasn't. I know that now. I clearly know that. But the first two were Orton D, the two that materialized in my bathroom. Next was Anna. She was a bluebird type being. Then there was Zark. He's a mathematician and engineer. He's a small grey. I've come to know him well over the years. He designs propulsion systems, and he's from the Pleiades system. And then in the centre was Ra. He was Anunnaki. He leads this group. His energy was absolutely tremendous. Then sat next to him was another grey, but he was a tall grey. His name was Tag, and he told me that he was responsible not only for the security of this Council of Eight, but for the security of this quadrant of the galaxy. And I hadn't thought about the galaxies being separated into quadrants, but that's what he told me. And then the next one was Chica. I was a little bit perturbed by him because he was a mantis being. And even though he was sat down, he was very tall. I could tell he was tall. And he just looked like mantis beings we have here, only a full 6'6" size mantis being. And then the last one was Orla. She was a tall white. She told me she was an astrobiologist. And she had a very pale, gaunt complexion, and her hair was translucent. You could see through it. So that was the group of 8. I've come to know them as the Council of 8. And that's the group that I have contact with and had contact with and still have contact with to this day. So, yeah.
I find the Council of Eight stuff, I'm highly skeptical, Kevin, and I want to tell you the reason why. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to ask a sub question, which will lead then to why I think I would need more talk about it to try and, like, settle it or reconcile it in my mind. Or is it? Forgive me if I get the name wrong, but I think you said Orla. Is that the tall white one?
Yes, at the end, yes. All as the tall white, yeah.
Now, how do you know them as tall whites? And they wouldn't refer to themselves as tall whites, would they? Presumably, they've got a species name, like, I don't know, whatever it is, because we're not, average pale, average pink, are we?
Yeah, well, clearly with Orton D, I knew them anyway, because bear in mind I met them when I was 8. Anna, she introduced herself and you could see what she was like because she was a blue bird type being with the very tight blue feathers and a duck type bill. And she was very empathic. She was a healer. A lot of information came over through the meeting as well. And I mentioned Zark, the small grey, a mathematician engineer. He's got 3 offspring. He calls them offspring, not children. I know a lot about him. He comes into my home and moves my wife's personal items around the home. And I've got some funny stories with him. And then Chica, obviously, I recognized him as a mantis. And Orla, I just knew she was a tall white. Again, was the information coming through telepathically? I don't know, but she didn't tell me she was a tall white. I just knew she was. Does that make sense?
Yes and no, because I've got to reconcile this in my brain. I'm quite a logical bloke, right? And so if someone shows me a cactus as an example, they'll say, I'll look at it and I'll recognize it as a shape that we now know as cactus. But if someone said, we refer to that thing as Dave, as an example, I'd always call it Dave, but actually its true name is cactus. Do you see what I mean? So if that alien,
yeah.
Surely that would be part of the information transfer. My name is X and I am a blah. I don't get where the tall white would come in because that's like a colloquialism based on Earth that you might not have even heard of while you were 14.
No, I hadn't. I hadn't heard of tall white. No, in fact, it's quite interesting because now you've brought it up. I have seen other people that have given representations of tall whites. I can't remember the guy's name now. He worked with them. He was in the Air
Charles
Force.
Hall or something like that.
That's him, Charles Hall. Yeah, and I've seen a couple of his documentaries, and he talks about the tall whites. And Orla doesn't look like the tall whites that he describes, and which are shown in his documentaries or representation of them. But I just knew she was a tall white, so I don't know where that came from. Whether it was just that again within that telepathic communication, there's all this energy that's around there. But yes, but from my knowledge afterwards, going backwards as it were, knowing what I know now about tall whites, I wouldn't look at Orla and say she was a tall white, other than I know she is from the very first meeting.
Do you ever did they, I'm sorry to labour the point on this, but did they ever say to you, like the Greys as an example, they don't refer to themselves as the Greys. They must have a species name. Do they ever let you know what that is and where they come from?
No, I asked them. I was told that the Greys are the most prevalent species in our galaxy, the most prevalent. And there are many species of Greys. But no, I haven't gone into that really. I think there's so much that we don't know. and they've concentrated on giving me experiences using consciousness itself, a lot of out-of-body work, a lot of understanding consciousness, a lot of understanding the different levels of consciousness that we can access if we leave the physical body behind and travel out of body.
Okay, and I've got more questions on the Council of Eight, and then we can go into it in more depth. Um, why you, or are you not alone in your presentation in front of this crowd?
No, I'm sure. Oh, I am at that time, but I'm now aware of others that have been contacted by Orton D. As I say, they are guides and teachers. And in fact, a friend of mine has just written a book. I have a copy here, just coincidentally. It's
Nice.
called Quantum Windows and Dimensions, a Christian woman's journey of faith and ET contact by Rebecca Renfro. And that's Rebecca on the back there. And
Hmm.
she's a retired actress and singer dancer. And in there, she writes about when she met Ort and Dee. So that's quite fascinating. So it's in here now. And that, I think she met them in 20, I think it's, I'll have to read it again. I think it was 2015. So they reached out to her in 2015. And then I have another friend, what was it? I got a book. Aurora Belcia. She's a member of the Exo Conscious community. And after she attended a CE5 group, she started channeling artwork of the Council of Eight. So they reached out to her. And if you want to see her channeled artwork, if you go onto www.exoconscioushumans.com, and don't forget the S, and go to gallery, you can see the channel portraits of the Council of Eight with a narrative of how she received the information. And before she went to the CE5, she couldn't draw, she could only draw stick figures. But the artwork is fascinating. So they're reaching out to her. I have another friend called Dr. Carrie McLeod. I'm given downloads. I'm given scientific downloads sometimes, formulas and things. I've had a couple of equations. And I was given a download of the quantum unified field theory, which I knew nothing about. And I was talking about it, explaining it on a show. And somebody was listening to it, Dr. Carrie McLeod, who I didn't know. And she's listening to it. She says, that's exactly the same words, verbiage that I had the download. Who is this guy? Who's this Kevin Briggs? I'll have to see if I can find him. Anyway, it turns out she knows Rebecca Hardcastle Wright, who's the founder of the Exo Conscious community. They worked together many years ago. She got in touch with Rebecca, joined the Exo Conscious community, and then lo and behold, I'm a member too. So then we've become friends. We now very often are given the same information, but clearly the Council of Eight are reaching out to Dr. Carrie McLeod with more information. And there's a great interview, and she explains that on the Exo Conscious community. If you go into their YouTube channel, and you'll see all the videos there, click on the videos, and you'll see Dr. Carrie McLeod talking about how she recognized the information, the download that I had verbatim was what she was giving. But that was really to bring us together. And I've noticed now there's a pattern where they ask me to do something or information. Like now, I'm sharing information here. There may well be somebody that sees that information. It's important to them. It triggers them in remembering something else. In fact, I've had a lady today. I was on another podcast yesterday, Sev Talk. She's a friend of mine. Okay. Well, she had to be woken up by the ETs because she wasn't afraid of what was happening to her. And I was on her podcast yesterday, and I've had an email this morning from a lady who sees the orbs. She's written a book about the orbs, and she wants to make contact with Orton D. So she's now reaching out from this side to Orton D. So we've got, and there's other people within the Exo Conscious community that Orton D are reaching out to now. So I'm not on my own in this now. There are others, because what's happening is our collective consciousness is expanding. And I understand now that's because I talk about it. as I talk about it, it becomes part of our collective consciousness. And then it opens up. If people are open to the communication, then they can have their own communication with. I've even spoken with Orton D at a CE5 group, a friend of mine, Gary Boss. He's a CE5 facilitator, and he uses the handheld walkie-talkie radios. First started with Jimmy Blanchett. He was the first person to use these handheld radios to communicate with them. And you ask them questions, and they'll give you 1 bleep for yes, 2 bleeps for no, 3 beeps for maybe, and 4 beeps for excitement or whatever. So you can ask some questions. And we've communicated with Orton D, asking them questions, and we get the answers over the radio. So we've now got not only just telepathic communication, and now Aurora Belcia, she has her own radios. She's communicating via the radios, via telepathic communication. Our collective consciousness is expanding. Does that answer your question, or did I go off topic there, Paul?
Slightly astray, but it leads me to another question I had written down anyway. Which
Paul, you've always got another question.
There's shed loads of them always, and it's all, it comes full circle anyway. And I'm going to start with the question, be blunt with it, but then you'll understand why I'm doing that. So, are the Council of Eight just constructed thought forms? And then I'm going to subappend that with this, i.e., someone first thought of them, spread the story, much like what you've mentioned a minute ago, and then it becomes this wider consciousness, and then we actually turn them into an actual real thing, i.e., are we creating them? Do you see what I mean? Because if we are creating the universe, say, have you been responsible for Orton D, somebody else been responsible for the Grey, and then because you all talk about them together, they form this thing, and then they're almost then making their own reality because they become a real... Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly. And I have that thought myself. I have that thought myself because of where I started out with Orton D materializing in the bathroom. And obviously, I didn't speak out about it. I had no need to. You know, people that did that were ridiculed and part of the Tin Hat Brigade or whatever. So unless it was only because they came and materialized in my bathroom 7 or 8 years ago that I speak out about it. But you are correct in relation to, are we creating them? And that is a possibility, because if you want to reach out, and once you understand the creation side and co-creation of consciousness, then that is a possibility. My own personal opinion, and this is my opinion, is they are real physical entities to start with. That's my opinion. But are we creating them now to expand humanity's consciousness so they become part of that? I suspect so, but they are real to start with. So it's like a duality of consciousness, shall we say, with the entanglement of consciousness, which is really going into the quantified unified field theory. Yeah.
And that thing then is, from that perspective, if they start out as a real object, we'll just call them an object, it's the awareness of them that is spreading.
Yes.
And then the understanding of that awareness, and then the understanding of that.
That would be my understanding of it. Yes, they are real people. They are real individuals. They do have a physical. Yet have I introduced them? In fact, you've made a very valid point, because when Art asked me to speak out about it, he said, Kevin, but I said, but people won't believe me. And his reply was, Kevin, it doesn't matter whether people believe you or not. What is important is that you tell your story of your lifelong contact with us. I didn't understand that then. I do now, because by talking about it, have I and others now created it? And I would suspect the answer to your question is yes and yes. They're both that, yes. And because of that, and that's why they're able to reach out, those of us who, the exo-conscious community, have developed their natural human abilities, their natural human intelligence, their natural human intentions, can now reach out to this group of 8 extraterrestrials, and they are doing so. And vice versa, the Council of 8 reaching out to others and making the contact with them.
I'm going to throw something at you now, which is kind of a weird question, but it's more of a theoretical, right?
Okay.
Because I'm actually on the side of good and thinking that everything has good intentions. Hence, with the animals and stuff that I like talking about earlier, because most people in the world are good, and therefore, in theory, most people everywhere else are good. From my perspective, imagine a scenario with this where you're interlocked with the Council of Eight, where a being starts out, it has a nefarious intention, but you didn't know about it, and part of its spreading is to let you talk about it, which gives it power, so that other people talk about it, so it gives it power, and then it manifests in. Have you ever thought about that? That by speaking about it, we're unwitting slaves to a nefarious intent. Does that make sense?
No, no, yeah, it does make sense. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. But no, I don't think it's that. My personal, because I've had lifelong contact with them, I've got to know a little bit about them. And because I'm able to communicate with them at their level of consciousness and travel with them at their level of consciousness, and understanding the creation and co-creation side of it, that's very important. I I have to trust my own knowledge, my own intentions, and I think they are benevolent. This is what they tell me. They are here to assist with our evolution. They are here to assist with the pollution of the planet. They will share some of their technology with us to help clean up this pollution that we've created. So, yeah, benevolent. But you have touched on there are evil extraterrestrials who don't want that to happen. I'm sure there are evil human beings who don't want that to happen, because when that does happen, they will lose their power, and they don't want that. So yes, I'm positive. I get other information from other areas within consciousness itself, which supports what the Council of Eight tell me.
That's fair
Does
enough,
that make
and
sense?
I knew it would go that way from your perspective, and like I said, I would be on the same page as well. I like to think that things tend towards benevolence. Maybe I'm wrong or naive. Maybe it is a pure in the middle. Who knows? But the telepathy thing, can stuff be hidden from you when they're sending out thoughts and stuff? Are you seeing the whole picture? Do you think?
That's a good question. Obviously, I suppose like anything else, when say you pick up a telephone and you're talking to somebody on the telephone, you're only understanding the words that they're giving you over the phone. What's going on around them? What's the intention of the person on the other end of the phone? You don't know. Well, that's part of communication, I would think. But telepathic communication is more accurate because, A, as I said before, I see it's like watching a TV screen. I see a visual of where they are if they're in a room and they're with other people, if they're in a craft and with other people, if they're stood on a planet outside, I see that. And then within the telepathic communication that comes through are the uh, emotions there as well. So, and they can't hide those, or I don't think they can hide those. I don't know the full powers of the. I mean, these are fifth dimensional beings. Apart from Ra, he's ninth dimensional being. Now, what are the powers of a ninth dimensional being? You're then going up to the higher levels of consciousness, to the divine levels, the angelic level, source level of energy. These are different levels of consciousness. But if anybody's interested in the equation that I was given for calculating the frequencies of consciousness of each dimension, it's just been recently published in this book. That's
Oh,
a greater reality by, I don't think you can read his name down there, Ray Hernandez. And this book is, I think it's 800 pages long. It's Ray Hernandez's book, A Greater Reality. There are 5 volumes. Volume 5 is experiences like myself as contributing authors, each writing a chapter. I've only read 2 so far. My own chapter, which I enjoyed reading, and then another chapter by Rebecca, Melanie Barton, Dr. Melanie Barton, and I've read that one, and some others. I know some of the people in here, so it's nice. Ray's got his own story. It's just a fantastic story of contact, Mine pales into insignificance with his story. Absolutely fascinating.
But does it though? I mean, I like this because it's a personal experience thing. It's like I think me and Tiff were talking about it yesterday. Like each person's experience is relevant to themselves, and everyone's gone through something, haven't they? I don't think you could weigh up your personal experiences as being lesser or more than Ray Hernandez's. Just like I couldn't say my life is better or worse than yours. They're just different. But I understand why you said what you said, but I don't think it's like that necessarily. I think everyone's
Okay,
personal
okay.
experience is
Well, yeah,
100% awesome.
yeah. I just see all the work that Ray's done in this book, and and the amount of work and time he's put into it, and the energy. And he's also done he's got a pilot movie coming out and a TV series. Well, I just chat to people like yourself. I enjoy what I do. It's not hard work for me. I'm semi-retired. I enjoy chatting to folk. I like sharing my story because, like I said, this lady that contacted me this morning, by speaking today, someone might hear my story
Mm.
and it might help them. So I would disagree to some uh, part that, yeah, some people do more than others, shall we say.
Yes, I agree with you because you can put more into a project and then add more value to a society or whatever. Yeah, that's an example.
And I
Everyone
think
has is relevant.
What Ray has done is brought the experiencer community together.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's what he's, yeah. And I think it's similar with Rebecca Hardcastle Wright and the exo conscious community. She's brought a community together of people like myself. Or the other individuals in there have the knowledge in different areas, and we all share that knowledge together. And it's interesting that this particular group of 8 extraterrestrials are now reaching out to other members within that particular group. So I saw a post today. I'm on Facebook and I saw a post, and it's all leading down this negative fear threat narrative now by people who I thought wouldn't go down that route, but they are doing. We need a positive route, a benevolent route with benevolent ETs. The exo conscious community give us that route.
Excellent. And I'm going to get more into the extra consciousness things with you in a sec, if I may. I have one more question. That when you're 14, you're taken to the Council of Eight. You've gone down into this. I think you said it was an arena of some variety. What was that experience then? What was that for?
Oh, that was so twofold, really. So I was introduced to them, and they were introduced to me. Now I didn't know that at the time. It wasn't until years later that I realised that. As a 14-year-old boy, I thought I was just a human specimen, but I wasn't frightened. I wasn't frightened by the experience. So yeah,
But what is that's all it was a meet and greet, an introduction.
yeah, that's all it was. That's all it was. Yes, yeah.
Okay, got you.
So quite simple, really. But bearing in mind, I'm a simple 14-year-old boy. I'm still at secondary school. I'm not very well educated per se. I'm just a your average working class boy. So that's why they had to educate me. And that's probably why Dee said, look at him. He's small, he's uneducated, and he's frightened by a presence. Well, I was. So they had to bring me up to their level of an understanding of consciousness. And let me just do a brief story on
Hmm.
when I was given the download of the quantum unified field theory with the explanation, and I'm given these downloads with these equations. I've got an equation for the void of consciousness as well, which is fascinating. But this particular one, I'm sat outside and I get this in an instant download of information on a subject I know nothing about. And I have a full understanding of it in an instant. So I said to them, I'm just sat there on my own. I said, you've just given me all this information about the quantum unified field theory that I know nothing about. I don't know why you've given it to me. Can you show me a craft to confirm that the information's come from you? A craft appeared immediately. So I went inside to get my wife. I said, Sandy, can you come outside and witness this craft? I'm hoping it's still there when we go outside. We go outside and the craft is still there. The second one appears, a third, a fourth, fifth, 7 in total appear. Fly slowly. They're not very high up. They fly slowly and quietly over our heads, silently, change direction by about 80 degrees, then float off, as it were, and disappear sequentially as they had arrived. My wife witnessed that. Later on, they gave me another download of the theory of everything. And again, I asked them again. On this occasion, a craft appeared immediately and just flashed 1, 2, 3 times. So I get confirmation of the information. And when you, again, I've mentioned this earlier, when you do it all your life, you're very confident in your ability, very confident in these actual beings who are here to assist with our evolution. And that's important to get that message across, that they are benevolent to help the evolution. And part of that evolution is understanding spirituality, who we are as a species. And when we understand that, again, we can all practice, we can learn, you can learn to remote view, you can learn to travel on the astral plane, you can learn to travel further, you can learn to create and co-create. So there's many things that we can learn as a spiritual being, having been in a physical body.
I've got 2 questions that sprung out of this, and one I'm going to write down because I think this is a later one, which is about reincarnation. But I'm going to come back to that in a sec. You asked a pertinent question when you were receiving these downloads, which is why you? And me, I would think the same thing. Why not send it to a telepathically aware mathematician or an astrophysicist? So what did you reconcile with that? Why you?
Well, what I decided was the fact that I have this information and I can discuss it with a leading scientist within those different areas. Where did I get that information from? I'm sure if I went out there and researched it, you could find it. But to get it in an instant, let me give you another example.
Sure.
Of the, as a friend of mine who's just passed recently, he was a leading scientist in consciousness. I didn't know him. He saw me talking on a podcast. I think it was Jeff Mara's podcast. And he contacted me. And he was part of a team that I think there was nominated for the Nobel Prize for the work in consciousness. So, and I hadn't heard of him, but he contacted me and we had a discussion. And I found a lot of my practical experiences mirrored his theories of consciousness. It was like dovetailed together. So we had 3 or 4 Zooms together discussing all this. So I had a conversation with him about consciousness. And then he contacted me one day and he said, Kevin, can you ask Ort and D what they know about the void? I didn't know the term. I hadn't heard it before. I know what void means, vacant or something, but I didn't know in relation to consciousness. And I left it a couple of days because I forgot about it. And then I thought, I asked. So I asked them, and they gave me an equation for the void of consciousness. They gave me an explanation of timelines and how past, present, and future timelines are created from the void of consciousness. The void of consciousness is not void, as the name suggests. It is full of possibilities, full of potential, full of intentions. So I gave that explanation to Sperry. He understood the equation. And interesting as well, when Aurora Bell Seer had the channeled information with Zark and his portrait, and Zark has a very good sense of humor. On his T-shirt is the equation for the void of consciousness. So they channeled it to her as well. So clearly that's where the creation side of consciousness comes from. And it's not separate, it's part of consciousness itself. I don't know why did I go into that? I don't know.
I don't know, but oh yeah, it's because I said, why you? And I think you kind of answered it in a way that makes perfect sense for me anyway, which is it comes to a lay person
That was it.
With experience attached.
Yes, I'm a lay person. I don't have any scientific expertise to that extent. I was a technician in a laboratory at one point in my life, but it doesn't make me an expert scientist. So it's coming from someone who doesn't have that knowledge. It's coming from someone, how many people, I know a lot of people that can remote view. I know a lot of people that can travel outside of the body on the astral plane. But I can go a lot further than that. I can travel to the levels of consciousness. I can travel to different dimensions because they're only the frequencies of consciousness. And I can explain how I do it. I don't know that I can teach other people to do it, but there are other people out there teaching people to remote view, teaching people to travel out of body, have the other abilities, cognitive abilities of psychic abilities. There are people out there teaching that. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, no, exactly. I understand why now a layperson would be giving it because it's a layperson parceled with their experience, and then when they go to someone with the experience of the actual science, they don't have the experience
Yes.
necessarily of the woo side of things, and it's like a
No.
wow hits together
Yes. Yes. Like I
and
said, it
shocks that
dovetailed,
person.
but it shocked me as well as I
Yeah,
think
I
the
bet.
Sperry Andrews as well, because it's really confirmation that the information I am being given is correct.
Now, your other equations that you've been given, have you given those to the relevant parties to explore?
Yes, and both those equations I mentioned earlier, the calculating the frequencies of consciousness in each dimension is in this book, and the void of consciousness equation, there's an explanation of the equation. I couldn't get the characters right to put the full equation in, but I explained the equation there, and I'm sure you can write it out for yourself. So now the scientists will look at that. I'm sure some will be skeptical and some will support it, or what. It doesn't really matter. I've got the information out there that I was given. I don't know whether they're correct because, as we said earlier, I'm just a layman. I'm the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger, you know. So, but I've learned to convey messages. That's been part of my training as well, to convey messages from them and from the different dimensions and from the what we call our deceased family and friends. They're not deceased. They're just at a higher level of consciousness without a physical reality.
Yes, and I like that. Now I'm going to go back to that other question I had thought of that you spurred off a moment ago. So yeah, reincarnation. Um, I'm just going to postulate a theory to you. I wonder if what you would call or refer to as fourth dimension, fifth dimensions, whatever beings coming here and interacting, are we stuck in a reincarnation loop here and we've lost our ability to get out naturally into the 3.5, fourth, fifth, whatever? Is that why there's intervention to help kickstart us back into getting out? Are we stuck?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. I think I mentioned earlier that I remember three past lives. I remember two of them particularly. I remember the deaths because they were violent deaths,
Oh,
and
nice.
I've been shown my future incarnation, and not I'm in any hurry to get there. So they have shown me that we do recycle around, but I think as we evolve spiritually, then we once you get to the fifth, sixth, seventh, as I said, Ra is a ninth dimensional being. He tells me he doesn't have a physical now, but he can materialize if he wants to. He can materialize in a physical form if he wants to. So, but he's a ninth dimensional being. So really, and then if I mentioned a bit earlier, if you keep going up the scale, you get up to the angelic realm, the divine realm, source energy itself, all frequencies of consciousness. So we are a part of that. And do we choose to come back, or is it a trap? Are you circled here until you keep going round and round? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. I do
That's
think
fair
we have
enough
the
if you don't
choice.
know.
I think we have the choice whether to come back or not. But yeah.
Well, it's a weird thing then. You're conversing with higher frequency entities, right? Via your experiences. Why are you doomed to have a future life on the third? If have surely you've like expanded enough to then
Oh,
take
oh,
you up.
yeah, well, I don't see it's doomed. I enjoy my life. I
I see what
enjoy
you mean.
being
Yeah,
alive.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, in fact, when I was 17, I'll tell you this quick story. Uh, I was looking for other people that could travel outside of the body on the astral plane, and because nobody talked about it. I'm 17, so I asked my family and friends, but I asked in a third party. I said, I have a friend of mine who tells me he travels outside of his body on a regular basis and can travel on the astral plane. Do you know anybody like that? No, 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 no. The answer came back, no. He must be delusional or making it up, or he's got a vivid imagination. So I decided, right, well, I'll ask Art. So that evening I went to bed, I relaxed, I opened my mind, and I said, Art, I know there's a lot more information out there. Can you come and show me? He took hold of my hand. I held my hand out. I don't know why I did that, but I did. And I left my body. I looked down. I could see myself asleep. Bearing in mind, I'm used to doing that on my own, but I'm now doing it with Art. We left out through the window, and then we flew around where I lived, recognized the area, and then back in through the window. I saw my body asleep. I went back into the body. I woke up that following morning. I thought, well, that was cool, but I wasn't quite sure what was happening. So I decided to do the same thing again on the second night. So I went to bed, I relaxed, I opened my mind, I held my hand out, I asked Art to come and show me some more. He came, he took hold of my hand, I left my body, I looked down, I could see it asleep, and we went out through the window. We flew down into Leeds city centre, we flew over the university, the hospital, the town hall, the buildings that I recognised, and the streets were vibrant with people. It was a nightlife city, was Leeds at that time. And then we came back to my apartment, into the window. I could see my body asleep, and I went back into my body. So then I woke up the following morning, and I still wasn't certain whether I was dreaming or sleepwalking or what. So I thought, well, I'll try it again for the third night. But I was a bit perturbed about going out through the window in case I was sleepwalking, because I was 3 stories up, and it was concrete pavement below. So same routine again. I relaxed, held my hand out, asked Art to come. He came, he took hold of my hand. And I said to him, before we go, I said, can we go out through the roof? Because I'm not certain whether I'm dreaming or sleepwalking. And I don't like going out that window. So I said, yes, no problem. So we went out through the roof. And all subsequent visits were out through the roof. But it didn't finish there. One day he came to me and said, Kevin, I'm going to take you somewhere special tonight. Are you prepared to go with me? I said, yes, I'll go anywhere you want. So he took hold of my hand. I left my body. I could see it asleep. Went out through the roof, and we just kept going up and up and up. And I saw the blue earth getting smaller and smaller, not unlike the picture behind me now, smaller and smaller and smaller. And we went into a higher dimension. And when we entered that dimension, there was a line of 30 people. At the head of the line was my deceased father. And he was stood up. I'd never seen him standing before, because when I was born, he was in a wheelchair. He greeted me, and there was a tremendous amount of love that emanated from these 30 people. And my dad said that I'm going to introduce you to your family members going back over 30 generations. So we went down the line. I was introduced to the first 15 who showed me a physical form. The second 15 were just pure conscious energy orbs, the circular energy. But they still were able to speak to me telepathically. They were able to show me their last incarnation. So I went down the line, and then I came back, and it was time to leave, and I left. I went to visit them on several occasions with Art. I became so confident in doing that, I could do it on my own. So I went, again, this is another lesson really. I went and visited them over a 2-year period, but I was finding it more and more difficult to get back into the physical realm, back into my body. So I decided one day at work, I won't go back anymore for the reasons I've just mentioned, but I better go back and tell them. I cannot just not turn up. So that evening, I went to visit them. This feeling of love, and they always wanted me to stay with them. And I said, no, I can't stay. I'm enjoying my physical down there in the third dimension. And I know you're here. When my physical dies, I will meet you then. And so I left, and I've never been back since. But that was a lesson in the different levels of consciousness in relation to when we die, where are we? Where are these higher levels of consciousness? So.
And it seems like the higher levels of consciousness, from that image of the line of 30, say, that as you get further this way, you get less physical and more presenting. I mean, less physical presenting and more energy presenting.
Yes,
so
yes, yeah. Yes,
that's an interesting image. Interesting image. Okay, so your book, though, that you showed up earlier, so Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey, were you told to write it? What was the inspiration?
Yes, when Art and Dee materialized in my bedroom 7 or 8 years ago, they said they wanted me to write and talk about my lifelong experience with them. And I said, I don't mind talking about it, but I'm not a writer. And they said, well, we'll continue to guide you, continue to teach you, and we'll give you some information to include in the book, which they did. The following morning, I woke up, I told my wife, and then I started writing that day. And I wrote every day for an hour between 9 and 10 until, and it's really just my life story in relation to the events, some of the events we've been discussing today. And I put them in that book, and it is available on Amazon if you are interested in. But there's
Link in the
another book.
description. Look
Oh,
below.
yeah, that's it. Spiritual consciousness, a personal journey, and that's me walking through into the universe, and that's my name at the bottom.
Lovely.
So,
Have you had any
and
contact via that book to say that you have been that linchpin to change someone's thought patterns or whatever?
Oh, yes, quite a few. Yeah, you'd be surprised. In fact, if you just go onto Amazon and read the reviews, I think there's 42. 40 are very positive. Two, you always get somebody that's negative. One complains about the size of the font, the lettering is too big or too small. I can't remember which it is now. And the other one complains about the spacing between the lines. So he bought it, but he sent it back because of space. How could somebody read that? So there's two negatives and 40 positives.
Aren't humans
Yeah,
ace?
yeah, yeah.
No, that's
It's
good.
part
You're
of who
always
we
going to
are.
get negatives.
Part of who we are. So instead of having a 5 point review, I think I've got about 4.6 or 7 or something. So,
That's
but
decent
hey,
enough, isn't it?
but yeah, it is. But even so, Paul, the what I've learned is the fact that those that need that information will buy the book, and that's
Yes.
what it's about. It's not about me selling millions of books because I don't sell millions of books, uh, but it's about somebody will read my book and then they'll contact me and said it helped them in getting to their next step. I've even helped people get onto the astral plane. I remember going to a meeting and speaking with this two ladies actually. One came up to me and she was an attorney, and she says, "Oh, Kevin," and I explained how I get onto the astral, or one of the methods of getting onto the astral plane is relax, open your mind, look inward, find a quiet space, close your eyes, look inward, keep looking inward, relaxing, looking inward, and you'll see an eye appear. When you see that eye, change direction and go through the eye, and then you'll be on the astral plane. And from there, you can go anywhere. And she says, "Oh, Kevin, I get to the eye, but I don't go through it. I'm afraid I won't be able to come back." I said, "Well, I've been doing it since childhood, and I always come back." So, yeah, so I saw her again later, and she did go through the eye. And I met someone else with a similar experience. And in fact, Dr. Carrie McLeod asked me about that a few weeks ago. And she practiced, she got to the eye, she went through to the other side, and she met a being. I can't remember the being's name now. But then she researched the being and saw that other people had seen that being as well. So really, it's expanding that greater reality of who we really are, expanding that consciousness. I think we're still very primitive in the spiritual side, in the understanding of the energies of who we are.
No, I agree because we're focused on this. That's why.
On the
That's a
reality.
species.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah. The materialism, the
Yeah.
materialism of science, the
And
materialism of
life.
buying
Yeah.
things, owning things, of having a big house, having a big car, having
Having
money.
to eat.
Yeah, and having to eat. Yes, having to eat. I mean, they're all important things, but there's much more surrounding us. And if you are open to that by teaching yourself or ask, we've all got guides and teachers. Ask your guides and teachers. And I always find the best time to ask is before you go to bed, because there are many modalities of contact they use, and dreams are one of them. And it's a simple one. You can ask for something. You can ask for healing if you need some healing. There are many things you can ask for assistance with, and if they can help, they will.
I've been pondering this one for quite a few weeks now, certainly in the last few days, which is to say, if we're on this earth plane, right, to experience, why do we need to know about everywhere else? Because in a way, doesn't that lose our focus of enjoying the experience? Or, do you know what I mean? I'm trying to work out what
Yeah,
exactly I mean there.
that's a very valid point. I think, in fact, it really reinforces when I was meeting with my extended family, deceased extended family, going back over 30 generations. They always wanted me to stay. And the love that emanated from them was a huge draw to me. But my response was, I'm enjoying my physical incarnation. I'm enjoying being down there on the 3D, in the 3D dimension. And I've got things I want to do. So, yeah, I won't be coming back to see you again. But I know that when I do die, I will come back and we'll meet up again. So, yeah, but we're not all as lucky as I am in relation to some people have some terrible lives. The, so I suppose it depends where you are within your journey of being in this 3D dimension. It's all right, me being happy because I've got to that position, but there are many that don't.
Agreed on that one. Now I'm gonna ask you a few questions on extra consciousness, then something about your police work, and then we're gonna branch into the Koit zone and wrap up. But so let's start with extra consciousness. What is exo consciousness?
Okay, I suppose it's really uh, accessing the natural human abilities that we have, which are psychic intelligence, psychic abilities, knowing, um, and just generally being able to connect to those higher levels of consciousness outside of the 3D reality. So we become exo conscious. We are conscious, but then we become, you could say, expanding consciousness, I suppose, within the individual. But there might be a definition on the site with what Rebecca Hardcastle Wright is the founder of the exo conscious community.
So it's just thinking outside of 3D realm, so to speak.
I
It's
think so,
expanding.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
That would be my explanation. You'd have to ask Rebecca for the. I'm sure she has a definition there, but
I
yeah, the website's freely available to everybody. It's www.exoconscioushumans. Don't forget the s.com. Lots of information out there, all free to access and things. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm speaking to her in a couple of weeks, so I'll ask her that very question.
Oh, okay then.
And I'll ask you off record after we've recorded this if there's any random question you want me to throw her away as well, just for a
Okay,
joke
yes.
or a serious question.
Yeah, I'll throw a low baller.
Yeah, do that. It's good. It's always fun.
Before you ask the next question, can I
Sure.
just mention, if we've got time,
Yeah,
there's
time, got time.
another book here called Forbidden Knowledge
Hmm.
by Kathleen Marden.
Lovely.
Okay. Now, the reason why I mention that book is I always find that I'm directed to go and meet people on my journey, and I don't always know where I'm going. On this occasion, Orton D said they wanted me to go to a MUFON conference that was in Orlando, and I live 40 minutes west of Orlando. So I got a ticket just for one day for a Sunday, and I went down there, and I was quite impressed with it. Quite a large conference, a lot of engineers, doctors there, a lot of professional people. I enjoyed it. And then at lunchtime, I said to Art on the way down, I said, I hope I don't meet someone here that can help me on my journey. And it got to lunchtime. We broke for lunch. I went to the canteen to get a sandwich, and it was absolutely full. I couldn't find a seat anywhere. Then I saw a seat at a table with two ladies. I went up and asked if I could sit down and eat my sandwich. They said yes. I ate my sandwich. When they'd finished their conversation, they brought me into the conversation. And that one of those ladies was Dr. Melanie Barr. And she was the person there that I was meant to meet. From there, from later on earlier on in the day, I'd already met Denise Stoner at the conference with an experiencer group. And I'd never been to an experiencer group before with other people that have experience with the extraterrestrials. So that was interesting. And then afterwards, I was introduced to Kathleen Marden. We all, three of us, four of us, well, one, two, three, for the four of us, went out for lunch, and I was discussing my story, and then Kathleen Marden invited me back to her home. Coincidentally, she only lives 10 minutes from where I live.
Oh,
So
nice.
we all, the four of us went back to her home, and then I was relaying some more information. And I think Denise Stoner said, Kevin, do you know what you're doing? I said, no, what we're doing. She said, you're channeling information. I said, oh, I'm just telling you what they've told me. She said, yes, but you're channeling it. I said, oh, okay. So from that encounter, we decided to meet at my home uh, once a month on a Saturday over a 2-year period. And the first was very interesting. We met at my home. Melanie said a meditation. There was Denise and Kathleen Marden. And Melanie said, let's see if we can connect with the extraterrestrials. So we had the meditation. And then Melanie says, did anybody get any communication from the extraterrestrials? And she went around the room. We all said, no. Oh, my wife was there as well. No, no, no. What about you, Kevin? No, I didn't get anything. No. I said, are you sure? I said, well, no, I didn't get anything. Other than there's a male stood next to me. I can feel his energy. Who is it? I said, I don't know. She said, well, ask him. So I asked him, and it was Ort. And then he spoke through me for about 40 minutes. Lots of information. And then when I finished, I came back into my body. I was exhausted. But then we met once a month on a Saturday over a 2-year period. We had 12 questions, and we asked those 12 questions of the Council of Eight. The answers were transcribed, and there's over 100 of those answers that appear in this book, Forbidden Knowledge. So if you want to know what the Council of Eight reaching out to other people through, I wouldn't have gone to the MUFON conference. I knew what was going on, but I wasn't really interested in the nuts and bolts of the machine and what I thought they represented. But clearly, by meeting Dr. Melanie Barton, Denise Stoner, and Kathleen Marden, we now have this book that introduces the Council of Eight to others.
Yeah, and I like that thread of A to B to C because I actually follow the same reasoning in my life. I like to think that fate has a flow for me and I just follow it and accept, and I go with it.
That's the word I use. I don't worry about it now. It's I go with the flow. If I'm asked to do something, and I might not know why, I'll go and do it as long as it's legal. I'll go and do it.
Yeah.
Contact the person or whatever, and just allow it to happen, allow the flow, because they've got an orchestrated plan, and I'm part of it, as many others are, as the exo conscious communities, as all the people that you interview here. I saw the list that you have interviewed, extensive there, and the work that you're doing is bringing all that information out to the general public. And when you get so many people all having contact, different expertise in a different area, then I think the experiences are the disclosure. We are the conduit that the extraterrestrials are using outside of our governments, outside of our science, outside of our educational system. They've educated people like myself in one small piece, one small area, and we are the disclosure. We are moving towards the reveal globally when we get to a position to invite our benevolent extraterrestrials to reveal their presence globally. And that's where we're headed.
And I like that because I also think the same thing. The true disclosure comes through personal experience and the spreading through whatever means we have. And in this moment in time, it's social media, and governments can't really control that at the moment.
No, they try to. They try to, but and censor it and all that. But I see people now, it's growing exponentially. I mean, a friend of mine, Costa McCree's, he started etletstalk.com. And he now has over 1 million members with all the different groups who reach out using their exo-conscious human abilities to reach out to the extraterrestrials, so they show us their craft at CE5 meetings.
Summoning, yeah.
Anybody can join that. It's free to join, and it'll give you all your different communities. Just www.etletstalk.com. Go on there, become a member. It's free, and participate. Reach out to the extraterrestrials. let them show you their craft. You can even ask for healing. They will help you to heal things. So yeah, we the people, we the citizens of Earth are doing this, and I know the governments are trying, but they're a little slow, I think, and we need to step in and take charge and ask for the reveal.
Go people! That's it. Right, so extra consciousness, right? I know you're part of that website. Again, is its purpose just to again spread this message? Is it all the same theme of this whole conversation? All these outlets, are they just to spread the message?
I think so, but there's another side to it. And the other side is the positive, benevolent side as we move towards the golden years for humanity. As I said earlier, I've just seen a podcast today, or a combination of podcasts, or montage, shall we say, and people who are now speaking negatively about the extraterrestrials, negatively about a possible apocalypse of humanity. Well, that's not the case. The exo-conscious community have a positive outcome with the benevolent beings because we understand how creation and co-creation we are able to do that, and we are the opposing side, shall we say, of the benevolent side against the threat side. And that when we move forward as a species, even within sciences, there's always two people battling to get to the goal first. If you look back in our history, that's always the case. And one succeeds and one fails. So hopefully that the exo-conscious community will be the one that succeeds. But we have connection to, as I said before, all the different levels of consciousness, all the way up to the divine feminine, the divine masculine, the source energy itself, the angelic realm. I get messages via people who have contact with the angelic realm. And because all these areas of consciousness are here to assist humanity in their evolution. And that's how big it is. And we as individuals within the exo-conscious community understand that. We all have those connections with those different levels of consciousness and energies. And I've learned so much from the exo-conscious community that helps me in my work and my understanding of where we are as a species, where humanity is, where we are going, where we are headed. We have the choices. We have to be discerning with the choices, but we have the choices of where we go, and the exo-conscious community are a huge part of that.
And I'm on that same journey with this podcast experience of mine, is to understand myself, the world, and our species' place in it, and the universe and how it all works. So yes, I get that path. Now, the final question before we jump into the Koit zone, which is about your police life. I want to know, looking back when you were a police officer, obviously that's a logical profession in every way, pretty much every way, shape and form. It's just investigation, isn't it? And bits, obviously there's sociology and psychology all in that and stuff involved. How would police officer Kevin Briggs view today's Kevin Briggs? The journey you've been on and the thought patterns you have now. What would he think?
Right. Well, yes, totally different. In fact, I was thinking about this the other day, actually, how we are different people at different stages of our life, depending on your journey, depending on your experiences, depending on your education. And I am a totally different person. I had all those psychic abilities as a police officer. I didn't use them within the job, as it were. I still traveled outside of the body. But I didn't talk about it because at that time I did mention to a friend once, and then I got ridiculed. So I soon learned that lesson. You don't talk about it. So it was, and I was happy with it because I just thought it was normal. It's who we are. We have these abilities, but people don't talk about it. I'm happy with that. I used to have my deceased family come and visit me at home, and to me, it was just normal. So yeah, I'm a totally different person now. I was always happy because I always enjoyed what I did. And I had this support of this extended family. If I needed help with anything, or even with decisions, I would ask them, and they would give me information and things. So, but I think looking back, being a technician a, a university helps with some technical things. Being a police officer, you've just described how the abilities that you learn as a police officer, and then being in real estate, very similar again, learning different skills, business skills and things, and then becoming an author, writing books, and then appearing on podcasts. Now in Ray Hernandez's film, A Greater Reality. And if anybody wants to see the trailer, it's www.agreaterrealitythemovie.com. And you can see the trailer there. It's supposed to be coming out later on this year. So all that has changed me. I sit here with a pile of books, look, a pile of books, all with information in. And a lot of it mentions me. You know, Ray and Andy's book, the thickness of that one. And I'm thinking, wow, this is poor little Kevin from Wakefield, you know, from all those years ago, who sat here now talking to you, Paul, about things extraterrestrial, about the universe, about sciences, about who we are as a species, where we're going, where's humanity going. I mean, what a topic for a small boy from Wakefield. Yeah. So,
But would that police officer look forward and think, "Whoa, you're well different to me. What's going on?" Would he think that?
I think the character is the same. I just think the knowledge is different. The education is different. I think that's the only difference. I always use the
Fair enough.
analogy that we would all like to fly, a jumbo 747. My brother used to maintain them, or the Airbuses and things. But you can't fly one without being educated. You need to understand the sciences of flight, the understanding the electronics and all that to be able to fly them. So what's happened to me from leaving the police force, I've continued to learn, but with the assistance of Orton D, that's the main guides and teachers. Without them, I'd still be Kevin, the retired policeman, or Kevin, the retired technician, or Kevin, the retired real estate agent. So, but those three disciplines give you an understanding, really. Communication is a great ability, and I think that's what being in the police force did for me. It gave me a great understanding of communication and how important it is.
No, that's fair enough. Now, a flippant throwaway remark here. Why do Orton D sound like a 60s pop duo?
I don't, I don't know.
It's just do to me.
I've no idea. I don't ask them why they were called Orton D. It's just what they told me, really. And they all only have one name. Why don't they have, Ort Briggs or D Spinks or something or whatever? You know, they just have one name. But I don't know. I don't know all the answers yet. Probably never will.
You should write those questions down. Why aren't you Ort Briggs?
I should do.
They
Yeah,
might be.
It might be. Yeah, might
They
be.
might be.
Yeah.
Kevin, we are now entering the Koit zone.
Koit Zone!
So, random questions, and we're going to start with a nice English one for you. Gravy, and I mean English gravy, the brown type. Lots and over the food, or a small amount and to the side?
Lots and all of the food.
Yes, we're off to a great start. That is the correct answer. Well done, you. Do you have a favourite coin?
A favorite coin?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not necessarily a one that you keep, but like a denomination.
A domino. I like the half crowns when they had them in the UK.
Oh, I've got one of them up there somewhere.
And I used to collect the silver sixpences. I've still got some now. And over here they have a $2 bill.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
well
I've
known.
heard of that recently. Yeah.
So I've got a couple of them. So those will be my favorite coins and favorite note. Oh, but I also have some beautiful notes from the Bahamas. I was fortunate to go on holiday there many, many, many years ago, and the dollars that they had there had all these beautiful pictures of fishes, butterflies, and things so vibrant. I collected them, and I still have those now.
Nice, nice. I used to collect coins, and notes. The silver sixpences, if there's a certain date, if you're before that, they've got silver in them, haven't they? That's worth more than the face value of the coin. Obviously, nowadays as well, because it's defunct. And the same
Yeah.
with some American coins, isn't it? There's a
I think
certain
so.
value.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not a coin aficionado, but just like I say, interested in some of them.
Cool, cool. What animal do you resonate the most with?
Dogs. My dog. Dogs. I've got two German Shepherds. We've always had German Shepherds. I resonate with them. They're smart, intelligent, affectionate. Yeah, they've got character. Yeah,
Had to
dogs.
be with you being a previous policeman as well, obviously.
Yeah, possibly.
Germans,
Yeah,
they have
possibly.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, it's a lovely one. When was the last time you accidentally stepped in animal poo?
Oh, that's a good question. I do it often.
Nice.
Carefully. In fact, at the moment, I've got somebody leaving me two pieces of poo on my back step. It's
Oh,
about as big
lovely.
as your thumb. And I have to, when I step out, I have to look. It's only just started. I don't know what it is, but it's. My wife thought it might be the frogs, but I don't think it's too big for frogs.
It's
But
a
yeah,
Wharton D.
you probably don't remember that. I don't know if you've ever done this where you've got up without shoes on it, gone out of bed, and you've gone into the room and your dog's had a diarrhea and you're standing it.
I haven't yet, but I'm looking forward to that occasion.
Something to look forward to, Paul. Something.
Yes. And was it warm or was it cold
It
by
was
then?
still warm on that occasion.
Ah, even better. That's
I don't
lovely.
recommend it. I don't recommend it.
What is your biscuit of choice? I don't mean
I
American
like the
biscuits.
chocolate digestives.
McVitie's, yeah.
McVitie's, yeah. I'll still get them here.
Oh, good stuff. I had a packet yesterday.
Oh, yeah, I love
Amazing.
them. I can eat the whole packet. I would sit down and eat the whole packet. That's why
I
I'm
literally did.
fat.
Do you have a favourite film?
Oh, a favourite film. Oh, so Zulu. Zulu,
Oh,
I
that's a good
think.
film, that, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yes, I like the music in it as well. So yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
Michael Caine in it. Yeah,
Yeah, great film.
yeah.
What is in your pocket right now?
What's in my pocket? Let's have a look. And that one is a washer, and in this one,
You're such a boy carrying a washer around with you.
it's an important washes that. I always have a washer. No, that's it.
A washer. That's amazing. It's got a
It's a
cut through
rubber
as
one.
well.
It's a rubber one. It's flexible. Look.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That
Goes
makes more
to the
sense
end.
now. If it was a metal one,
Yeah,
that would
I
have
mean,
been weird.
If you ever want one for the end of your hose pipe, you can never find one. I've got one in my pocket.
Carry one always. That's a good tip.
There it is.
What job around the house has been on your list for quite a while? You just haven't gotten to it yet.
Oh, there's quite a few. I do get to them, but it's when. In fact, I've been meaning to clean my. I've got a pool here. Fortunate to have a pool. Been meaning to clean my pool deck for the last 2 months, and I actually did it on Sunday with my wife. So it took us 2 hours to do it. I did that. The other ones are. I've had some bees living in my home recently. They go into a small hole. They all left the other week and moved off somewhere, so I've got to fill that hole. I might do that today, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always jobs to do out there. There's always jobs to do.
Always jobs to do. I love it. What part of you annoys you the most? I.e., it could be a
Ooh.
physical or it could be a mental characteristic.
What annoys me, it annoys me that I'm fat.
And you love biscuits, though, don't you?
And I love biscuits. I like ice cream. And I like eating. I mean, that's it. So, yeah.
That's fair
So
enough. That's
hopefully-
the answer.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. You are offered a seat on a mission out of our solar system. It's a one-way trip. Where is it heading, and are you going?
Alpha Centauri, and yes, I'll go.
Right, which begs the question, why?
Well, that'll lead into another story. I was asking to Orton D to come and land in a craft at the back in my paddock here.
Mhm.
And I had a a dream that someone landed at the back. I was taken in this craft to Alpha Centauri. It was a binary star system. They had a red dwarf and a regular sun. We went to this planet. I was introduced to the guy's family. He had a wife, two girls, and a boy in their 20s. And we had a picnic by a lake. And then he brought me back. And I woke up, it was a dream. And then I went to a conference down in Sarasota, and two of the speakers were Dr. Desiree and JJ Hertak. And they were talking about a woman who was taken to Alpha Centauri in a craft, a binary system, introduced to family members. And she was an artist, was this woman. It was 1946. She drew a painting of the pilot, and it was the same pilot in my dream. And I saw that painting about 2 months after I had the dream. So I now suspect it wasn't a dream, it was a reality. Because our dream is just another reality of consciousness. And because I'd been asking for Orton D to come down and land in a craft, was I transported to this? And it was interesting because when I went into their home, there were no doors or windows, there were no glass or doors on. So you just walked in. But then I noticed when his wife said, "Oh, I'm just going to go upstairs, then I'll come and meet you outside, we'll have the picnic." As she went up the stairs, she floated up the stairs. And then we walked out of the house down towards the picnic tables. And I noticed I was the only one that was walking on the floor. They were floating about 6 inches above the floor. And I've heard other people talk about these beings that float 6 inches above the floor. So Alpha Centauri, I would go there and live there. Yeah.
What if you go all that way and they're not in?
Well, I used to do that when I was younger. When a friend of mine, he lived about 10-minute, 50-minute walk from where I lived, and I'd leave my body, I'd go over to see if he was at home before I walked round. And on this occasion, I'll tell you this quickly before we go. I thought, oh, it's Sunday. Well, the pub's open at 12. I'll go for a pint with Gary. I'll just nip over and see if he's in. So I left my body, I nipped over. He's laid on the sofa. His mum's in the kitchen cooking, and he's watching football on the TV. I thought, right, I'll get changed and I'll go around. So I got changed. I walked around 10, 15 minutes, knocked on the door. His mum opened the door. I said, "Oh, is Gary in?" "No," she said, "it's not." I went, "Oh." I said, "I've just seen him." I didn't say to her, "I've just seen him." The thought was, "I've just seen him." But then she followed it up. He's been laid on the sofa all morning watching the soccer. He's gone round to Steve to see if he wants to go for a pint at the pub. I said, "Oh, I'll walk down there then." And so I met him. We all went up for a pint at the pub. So
good old Steve. Yeah. Lush, thank you. That is the end of the Koit zone, which leaves us our final 2 questions. So, what else do you like to do in your downtime? Any activities or guilty pleasures for you?
Oh, well, very good as that. I enjoy walking my dogs. I enjoy that. I enjoy being out in nature itself, trimming my plants and trees and things like that. I enjoy going to the local restaurants. We went to a Mexican last night here in Claremont. Lots of local different restaurants and things. I enjoy eating, like I said. I like having a pint of beer still, an English custom, I think. I used to have a boat, but I sold the boat now. So, yeah, just generally, I enjoy the sunshine. It's tremendous here. It's just sunshine day after day after day after day. It makes you feel good.
Yeah, I love that. And final thing, do you have a project that you're currently working on?
Do I have a project?
Yeah.
I'm writing another book with
lovely.
a friend of mine. I'm going to put I've already spoken to with Aurora Belcia. We're going to use I was in a competition, Evidence in Life After Human Physical Death. Robert Bigelow of the aerospace industries, Bigelow Aerospace, had a competition, and I entered that competition. You had to qualify to enter. I entered. I didn't win, but I'm going to publish that entry that I did. I think Dr. Jeffrey Mishloff won, and the first prize was $500,000. He won that. I wasn't in the prize money. He gave out 1.8 million in prize money, did Bigelow. So I'm going to publish my own entry for that, plus with the pictures of Aurora's of the Council of Eight with their explanation, and maybe get possibly some other people from the exo-conscious community to contribute something. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. That's my next project. I've already spoke to my publisher. She's happy to publish it. I've sent her some of the information, so hopefully I can get it out there. And then I'm waiting for Ray Hernandez's film to come out because I'm in the film, I'm in the documentary, and I want to see how it's all been put together and how the story is told. So yeah, so still like a lot of things going on, exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I watched the trailer the other day to that, so it looks very professional and well put together. So it's going to be looks good when it's going to come out.
Yeah, it should do. Yeah, yeah. I know obviously I met the producers when I was invited. No, Orton D told me one day, Kevin, we want you to go down to Miami and speak at the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute. I think it was a free institute at a big conference. So I thought, wow, nobody knows me. So I contacted the organizer, which was Ray Hernandez, and I said, "Oh, hi Ray." I introduced myself. I said, "My extraterrestrial guys have asked me to come down and make a presentation at your conference. Can I do that?" "Yes, come on down," he said. so he didn't know me. And so I went down with Melanie Barton, and I actually did a channel. Ra came through. It was filmed by the producers of the film that Ray Hernandez is putting out now later this year. And hopefully they've kept some of that in there. And that channel describes the reveal itself. So again, going back to what we discussed earlier, are we manifesting the future event? I suspect we are.
Or at least help them push it along quicker. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. But yeah. Who knows?
Super lush.
Yeah, so.
Right, okay. Everyone check out the links in the description to Kevin's site. Kevin, is there anything else you want to promote?
No, I don't think so. If anybody wants to contact me, my email is kevinjamesbriggs@gmail.com. So it's just my name, kevinjamesbriggs@gmail.com. I'm happy answering any questions, or if I can assist you on your own personal journey, just reach out to me.
Super lush. Kevin, thank you ever so much for coming on today. Really appreciate that. There's some great things I've taken from this, and you've actually swayed my mind in certain areas. So that's a food for thought for me over the next few weeks or months. So thank you for that. I always like to expand my mind. Hope everyone else watching this today also got nuggets of information out of it. And we'll see you on the next one. Kevin, goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.